Hi, my name is Michelle Stocks. I'm the Business Development Manager for Kirinari Community Services on the Mid-North Coast. I'll be talking today about issues for women with disability who experience domestic and family violence. I'll also discuss some main points from the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability and some key findings from the interim report. The most recent data from 2016 shows that almost 2.4 million people with disability aged 18 to 64 years, which is almost 2 in 3, had experienced violence in their lifetime. In a 12-month period, people with disability are twice as likely as people without to experience violence. People with disability experience violence at higher rates than people without disability. In particular, women with disability are at greatest risk. Women with disability may also experience barriers to accessing support services. Compared to women without a disability, they're at greater risk of severe forms of intimate partner violence, experience violence at significantly higher rates, more frequently, for longer, in more ways and by more perpetrators. They have considerably fewer pathways to safety and are less likely to report experiences of violence. For many people with disability, even recognising that they experience violence is a problem or a crime is a significant issue. This can be made worse by limited access to quality information and support. They may also lack the confidence to seek help or be unaware of the services available to support them. Another barrier to seeking help or reporting violence is not being listened to. Often people with disability have limited control in family or institutional settings. In these environments, perpetrators are often seen by others, such as police as doctors, to be more believable. Although women with disability are affected by similar types of violence as women in the wider community, they often experience different forms of physical, psychological, and sexual violence. The violence can be perpetrated by a partner, relative, paid or unpaid support worker, even as well as strangers. In a residential or institutional setting, the perpetrator could be another resident, a staff member, a medical practitioner, or a service provider. Those who rely on personal care assistance may be subject to frequent violence and abuse, ranging from neglect and poor care to economic, verbal, and sexual abuse. So recognising forms of violence, examples can include threatening to punish, abandon, or institutionalise them, threatening that police or other services will not believe their reports, threatening to report them to child protection or have their children taken away, threats to assistance animals such as guide dogs, financial abuse, or abuse that focuses on the disability itself. The Disability Support Toolkit is an outcome of the Disabilities Pathways project. It has been developed to provide frontline workers with resources to assist them in supporting people with disability who have been impacted by violence and abuse. The toolkit includes videos to share with clients on how to contact 1-800-RESPECT and how the service works. They provide easy English booklets that can be downloaded or ordered free. And the toolkit can be used in conjunction with information provided on their website on inclusive practice, supporting people with disability. I'll discuss now the interim report and findings from the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability. The report says people with disability experience attitudinal, environmental, institutional and communication barriers to achieving inclusion within Australian society. It shows that a great deal needs to be done to ensure that the human rights of people with disability are respected and that Australia becomes a truly inclusive society. The interim report identifies that people with disability are experiencing violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation across all aspects of their lives, including in education, healthcare, justice settings and in their homes, workplaces and communities. Chapter 17 of the report, Emerging Themes and Key Issues, Discuss areas that have emerged as particular significance to the independence of people with disability and their right to live free from violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. They include choice and control, attitude towards disability, segregation and exclusion, restrictive practices, access to services and supports, advocacy and representation, oversight and complaints, data and funding. The report notes there is no nationally consistent data on neglect or exploitation of people with disability and no comprehensive data on experiences of people with disability. These include from people with culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, gender diverse people and those from the LGBTQ community, children and young people, First Nations children, and people experiencing homelessness. A specific chapter is dedicated to the unique experiences of First Nations people with disability. The report says First Nations people face double discrimination because they are both First Nations and a person with disability. They are more likely to experience harm than the general population, and they lack culturally appropriate services and supports. First Nations people with disability have told the Royal Commission about being bullied or abused by people in positions of power. It has also heard that the fear of child removal and subsequent institutionalisation is a particular barrier for First Nations people with disability accessing services. Among those issues to be examined as the Royal Commission continues, especially in the experiences of First Nations people, are those that are in contact with the child protection system, training and education of healthcare professionals, pathways and barriers to open employment for people with disability, domestic and family violence against people with disability, especially girls and women, and long-term detention and interactions with the criminal justice system experienced by people with disability. So what can we do to help make accessing supports for women with disability experience domestic and family violence? We need to listen, we need to respond, and we need to refer. We have the 1-800 RESPECT number. We have DV Connect Men's Line, which is there for men who are experiencing abuse or domestic and family violence. And I'd also like to point out that if you do have a client with a disability experiencing domestic and family violence, Kirinari can provide short or medium-term accommodation by contacting the number on the screen, or if the matter is urgent, you can also reach out to me directly. I wanted to just finish on a quote from Hannah Gatsby, an Australian comedian. She says, "To be rendered powerless doesn't destroy your humanity. Your resilience is your humanity. The only people who lose their humanity are those who believe they have the right to render another human being powerless. They are the weak. To yield and not break, that is an incredible strength." Thank you.